Good morning, everybody. So we're going to sing an opening hymn that's actually in your programs today. You can follow along, and please rise if you are able. It's called So Glad I'm Here. I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here. I'm so glad I'm here today. I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here. I'm so glad I'm here today. Love while I'm here, I'll sing while I'm here. While I'm here today, I'll sing while I'm here. I'll sing while I'm here. I'll sing while I'm here today. Joy brought me here. Joy brought me here. Joy brought me here today. Joy brought me here. Joy brought me here. Joy brought me here today. Love brought me here. Love brought me here. Love brought me here today. Love brought me here. Love brought me here. Love brought me here today. We're gonna sing. I'll sing, brought me here. So glad I'm here. So glad I'm here today. I'm so glad I'm here. So glad I'm here. I'm so glad I'm here today. So glad I'm here, so glad I'm here, oh, so glad I'm here today. So glad I'm here, so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here today.
Good morning. Thank you for being here, whether you're in our sanctuary next door in the center or watching online. My name's Ashley, and I am a proud member of this community, also of the young adult group here and the Ride On Covenant group. Thank you. If you're brand new to UUCA today, I was in your seat just 1 year ago, so I want to extend a personal welcome and invite you to introduce yourself to me after the service or any of the the worship associates. We'd all be glad to get to know you. If you've been here for a while or coming for a very long time, welcome back. It takes all of us to build this community, and I know that this space is a little brighter and a little better because you're here today. I'd also like to invite you all to join us for coffee after service in the fellowship hall, or if you'd prefer a quieter, more personal space to learn about UUCA, you can, after the service, grab some coffee. And outside of this room, down the hallway to the right, you'll find the welcome room where someone will be waiting to chat with you and maybe answer some of your questions. And enjoy that, because in my experience, if you stick around, you'll have far more questions than answers. And you may have also noticed the empty seat here and around the sanctuary. We'll be using this visual throughout the month to remind ourselves to always leave space in our lives and in our sanctuaries for the newcomers.
Good morning. We have, as always, a wonderful chalice-keeping family here. They have brought the flame in to light our chalice, to remind us of its warmth and glow through our service today. And also they will bring our flame home to their house and light the chalice there, bringing our community home to them and bringing it back to us next Sunday, making it richer and better because of their participation and their warmth. So first, tell us who you are.
I'm Diane Julius.
And I'm Rhonda Buckner.
All right, please hold out your hands. Rhonda, we bless. Oh wait, I forgot something. Thank you. See, you're already doing it. You know, it's not just me blessing Rhonda and Diane. It's everybody. So you guys are so good. You already know what to do. So hold your hands up. Send your blessings up here. You guys are awesome. Okay, Rhonda, we bless your head. We bless your heart. And we bless your hands. Diane, we bless your head. We bless your heart. And we bless your hands. Thank you.
So this is the part of the service where we normally ask you to rise as you are willing and able and greet your neighbors. Instead, as we begin to explore this month's theme of welcome, instead of greeting several of your neighbors, I'd like you to take a moment, choose one neighbor, preferably someone you don't know yet, but you do you, and ask them what brought you here today.
Responsibility and Toyota. Give him like 30 more seconds.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I have a story to tell once we all come back together. And it's a very familiar story based on a song. Yep. Good morning. I have a... Okay. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw him, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Now, you know that song? Raise your hand. You've heard it before? If you kind of know it's a story about reindeer pulling a sleigh, you know it's a kind of a goofy story. But it does say something very important. And if you're willing to come forward, especially the children, we're going to analyze that story in terms of welcome and not welcome. So can I have any helpers who know the story of Rudolph? Come on up. Come on up if you'd like to talk a little bit more about the story. You can have a seat on the steps if you'd like. So let's start singing that song again, okay? Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to stay. Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then how the reindeer loved him, and they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. Now, Rudolph and the other reindeer in that story song are like children. Rudolph, however, is a little different. What's different about Rudolph?
His red nose.
His red nose. Now, were the other reindeer at first very welcoming, very friendly towards Rudolph? No. What did they do? They laughed at him and called him names, and they never let poor Rudolph play what?
Reindeer games.
Any reindeer games, right. Good. But then Santa, he's a very good person in real life, a person named St. Nicholas. But in this story, he comes around on Christmas Eve. But what was wrong on that Christmas Eve? Something was wrong with the weather.
It was very stormy.
Stormy or
Foggy.
foggy. And because Rudolph what? Had this special nose?
To light up the way
Light the way.
for the misfits' toys.
And so the story, can go on. So when Santa asks Rudolph to use his bright nose to guide the sleigh, the other reindeer now think of Rudolph differently, don't they? They don't think of him just as a reindeer with a red nose, but a reindeer who had an important job to play. And so now they are able to be more friendly towards him. Well, we'll be starting school pretty soon. Do you think every other student in your class will look exactly like you?
Never.
Do you think any of them will have bright red noses? Probably not, okay. But everyone, no matter what they look like, no matter how special they are in their appearance, should feel welcomed. And the more friendly we can be towards them, the better we'll all be. So it's a little early for a Christmas song, but I thought of that song because even though it was not yet Christmas time, Rudolph showed up with his special nose, like maybe in September. Thank you very much. Would you join me in singing our children to their learning areas? The song is in your program. May your mind be open to new learning. May your It's a privilege for me to be a part of the Worship Associates this morning and to be bringing you the first of our 3 reflections. As you've already heard, our theme for the month of September is welcome. And as I was thinking about that word, I thought to myself, it's used in many different settings, like if you gave me something, I might say, Thank you very much. And then you might say, you're welcome. In other words, what the phrase means is it's good that that has come. It's well that you have come. When I say welcome, it's well that you have come. I'm actually saying something about myself. I feel good that you are here. Now, if I make you feel welcomed, then I have helped you understand how I feel. I can't really make you feel welcome, but I can do things that demonstrate that I am glad that you are here. So to me, that's what the word really means. I do something that makes you know, helps you know, that I'm glad that you're here. When I was a camp counselor, I noticed that if I remembered the campers' names after registration, their eyes would brighten and they would get a smile on their face. It seemed very welcoming to them that I could remember. And I'd say, "Hello, David." And he'd look up and he'd smile. Well, one of my counselor friends said, there's a trick, to remembering people's names. He explained that you identify the name with something about their article of clothing. So I started looking at people's clothing. And if Ricky's wearing a red shirt, his red shirt triggers Ricky. So I'd see him, around the camp, and I'd say, "Hi, Ricky." Or if there's something green about the church, I'd say, "Hi, Gracie." And it's a kind of a memory trick. But after swimming, everybody put different clothes on. I was in a church outside of Christiansburg, and I was trying to do memory techniques. But the first 6 people that shook my hand as they left church were all the same last name, Epperly. It wasn't going to work very well. The act of being welcoming is a verb. If you were to send money to help out with Hurricane Harvey relief, the money would be welcome. Does the money feel welcomed? Money doesn't have a feeling. So something can be welcome whether it's an animate object or an inanimate object. The point is, we have feelings as human beings. We like to feel welcomed, but it depends on the people in the place where we're going, whether or not I'll feel welcomed. There is a role for ushers to play in welcoming people who arrive at worship. They'll hand out a worship program and hopefully smile, and if they know the person's name, greet them. The same is true with our door greeters. This church even has parking lot greeters, and so hopefully you have felt welcomed from the moment you arrived. But it's not just the parking lot greeters who should be welcoming, and it's not just the door greeters or the ushers. We all have a role to play because we are a welcoming church. We'll be striking this theme in several different ways as the month goes along, so I invite you to think about that. I like the word hospitality, partly because it talks to me about more actions. And hospitality comes from an old word like hospice and hospital, all from the same word. And it has to do with being a guest in the original language. And so when we are hospitable, we're treating one another as guests. You could say, I went to that church and I was hospitalized. No, that's not the right way we'd use that word. But some form of a word should cling to your heart after you have been in worship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington.
To help us enter into a spirit of meditation or prayer, listen to these words by poet Naomi Shihab Nye. Different ways to pray. There was the method of kneeling, a fine method if you lived in a country where stones were smooth. The women dreamed wistfully of bleached courtyards, hidden corners where knee fit rock. Their prayers were weathered rib bones, small calcium words uttered in sequence, as if this shedding of syllables would somehow fuse them to the sky. There were the men who had been shepherds so long they walked like sheep. Under the olive trees they raised their arms. Hear us, we have pain on earth. We have so much pain there is no place to store it. But the olives bobbed peacefully in fragrant buckets of vinegar and thyme. At night the men ate heartily, flat bread and white cheese, and were happy in spite of the pain, because there was also happiness. Some prized the pilgrimage, wrapping themselves in new white linen to ride buses across miles of vacant sand. When they arrived at Mecca, they would circle the holy places on foot many times. They would bend to kiss the earth and return, their lean faces housing mystery. While for certain cousins and grandmothers, the pilgrimage occurred daily, lugging water from the spring or balancing baskets of grapes. These were the ones present at births, humming quietly to perspiring mothers, the ones stitching intricate needlework into children's dresses, forgetting how easily children soil clothes. There were those who didn't care about praying, the young ones, the ones who had been to America. They told the old ones, "You are wasting your time." Time? The old ones prayed for the young ones. They prayed for Allah to mend their brains, for the twig, the round moon, to speak suddenly in a commanding tone. And occasionally there would be one who did none of this. The old man Fauzi, for example, Fauzi the fool, who beat everyone at dominoes, insisted he spoke with God as he spoke with goats, and was famous for his laugh. Now let us join our hearts and minds together in a spirit of meditation, prayer, or silence. Divine Spirit, we come here today joyfully and fearfully. We come as visitors for the first time, curious, apprehensive, hopeful. We come as visitors for the 100th time or the 1,000th time, walking a familiar path but still wondering if we belong. We long to be heard, we yearn to be known, or maybe we are just looking for peace and stillness. May we be open to each other, may we share our true selves. When we see or hear what we don't recognize, may we turn to wonder instead of accusation. May we reach out instead of shrinking away. May our spirits be generous with welcome, with hospitality, with a willingness to understand, instead of fear, that which is different from us. Now into this sanctuary, silently or aloud, we share the names of those people on our hearts, people we love, people we miss, people who we don't understand. At this time, we lift those names into the light. In particular, we lift up the life of Frank Adamson, a longtime member of this congregation, who passed away last week after a long and difficult illness. We send love and healing to his family, especially to his wife, Linda. May we keep each other, stranger and friend, in our hearts and minds this coming week. Amen.
Bet you're wondering what this is for. Today, you'll hear me talk a little bit about the time that I lived in Ukraine for about 2 years. Right now, I want to share that in my first week living in Ukraine, I found myself in the mayor's office in my town. And he came out with this large embroidered cloth on his arms and this braided piece of bread on top. And the bread had a little bowl of salt in the center of it, and he extended it. And I had no idea what to do, so I just stood there. But the way this is supposed to work, what I didn't know at the time, was that this is a type of blessing for newcomers to honor welcomed guests. So the way it works is that the guest will tear off a piece of bread, they'll dip it in the bowl of salt, and then they eat it. And I recently learned that these celebrations can happen at weddings, other important life events, and that this tradition, or a similar tradition, is also a part of Jewish culture and Arab culture, and you may recall was even used on the International Space Station, bread and salt, as a sign of welcome. So we do invite you to participate. If you require gluten-free bread, we do have some of that. Please let us know. And what we're going to ask you to do is, and can you hear me? Okay, so we're going to ask you if there are these two middle sections to come up to the center and kind of move outward, and the same for you, please kind of just move toward the wall and we're outward. Do it that way, so please do join us in this ritual. plenty of people have moved homes more than I have, but I've done my fair share of wandering. In the last 5 years alone, I have had 7 addresses in 4 states and 2 continents. So you could say I'm something of a professional new kid, which is of course our theme today. And I just love being new. I really enjoy meeting new people, discovering new places, new favorite coffee shops. It's wonderful. But being the new kid is also quite scary at times. And I'd like to share a story today about a time when I was the new kid and I was scared. Almost 7 years ago to this day, the Peace Corps was sending me from my training village just outside of Kiev, Ukraine, to the place where I would be living for 2 years. And they gave me 3 things to help me on this journey: an address, a train ticket, and a first aid kit. And I used all of them. So I took the train ticket and I got on the train, I got off the train, and I'm standing there on the side of the train tracks, and to give you a picture, I have a backpack. I have 2 very large suitcases, because this is my life for 2 years I'm carrying. Got my first aid kit and I have a space heater, and it's nighttime and it's snowing and I'm by myself. And I had learned some of the language, so I was reading Cyrillic, and I was like 90% sure I had gotten off in the right town, so that's a good start. And everything was new to me, not just the language, the faces, the culture, the traditions. The trains looked different, the tickets, I couldn't read it. Even things like getting from the train station to my own apartment felt like an insurmountable challenge. It's really quite humbling. So I took all of my stuff. I got on a bus that night that I thought would take me to my apartment and sat down by myself. And it took me quite a while to discover that the bus was going in entirely the wrong direction. I was born without an internal compass, you see, and while you'd think that would keep me from moving to another country by myself, apparently not. So I realized I was going the wrong way, but I was panicked and I was paralyzed, and in my head I was trying to put together the words in this foreign language to explain to the driver what had happened. But instead I just sat there as the bus drove further, and I was waiting for it to hopefully loop back to the train tracks. After a while, the bus pulled over in this little village in the middle of nowhere, and it's still snowing, and the driver says, "Get off." And so I started explaining, like, "Help me, I don't know what I'm doing." And he didn't understand, so he started growing impatient and a little angry with me. And I kept just desperately try to say, I really need your assistance here. And he did realize that I was quite helpless, and he said, "Where are you from?" And in that moment, I knew that it was entirely possible that this man had never met an American face-to-face. And I knew that if I was stupid, that maybe to him all Americans would be stupid. And if I was rude, all Americans would be rude. So I did the best, most patriotic thing I could think to say in that moment: "Yes, Canada, I'm from Canada." But he did help me once he realized what was going on. And he got back on the bus, his shift was over, it was nighttime, and he drove me straight to my apartment. And what an incredible act of welcome that was, if you think about it. And this encounter taught me 2 very important lessons that stay with me. One is that in an unfamiliar space, whether that's a new country or a new school or a new church, it's really only scary if you face it alone. And the second thing is that when someone is in unfamiliar territory, the first person they encounter might be the only window they have into that community. So think about that for a moment and how that applies to us here. Is it possible that sometimes when there's a newcomer in this church, you are that first window into Unitarian Universalism or into UUCA? How we as individuals choose to greet the new kid can determine whether people want to come back or not. And I do believe that every one of us has that responsibility to always strive to build a more welcoming community. So a few tips from my own story. I mentioned that I started coming here about a year ago, last October, and I sat way in the back by myself. I'm sure there are some of you back there today. And I know that I would not have come back if it wasn't for a few people and a few kind actions. I want to say thank you to James, if you're here or if you're watching online. You were the first person to say hello to me, and so thank you for recognizing the deer in headlights look, for introducing me to others, and importantly, for inviting me to events outside of the Sunday morning service. Because that led me to my second encounter with UUCA. Because personally, I found Sunday morning on a Tuesday night. By which I mean that I found a spiritual connection sitting with the young adult group at our monthly beer, pizza, and questions about the universe event. So I want to thank Kelly for welcoming me into your group with grace, as you do for so many newcomers. We're not all going to find fulfillment here in the same activities. So please do invite people to other events that might be where they fit in the best. And third, I'm a closet introvert. So it may seem easy for me to approach strangers or to stand up here, but believe me, it is not. And I understand if it's not that easy for you. So maybe you welcome the new kid in a different way. Maybe you staff the welcome room for small discussion, or maybe it's by introducing people to other churchgoers, or maybe it's by inviting them out to coffee. I still remember Pat, who invited me to go to coffee with her, and we sat at Rappahannock over a honey latte, and I felt incredibly safe in that space, being able to ask questions about UUCA and my place within it. And without you and people like you, I would not have chosen UUCA as my faith home. But because of these acts of welcome, I come back, and I come back, and I come back, again and again and again. So now I have the best covenant group anybody could ask for. I co-facilitate a book club with my friend Stephen, where we take sacred reading practices from various faith backgrounds, and we apply them to books like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because that sounds pretty UU to me. And I attend every young adult event that I can. So I have all of these opportunities to find welcome and to practice welcome and to embody the welcome that I was shown when I started showing up. And I owe that to all of you because you welcomed me. So thank you, and right on. Hi, it's me again. UUCA is shifting to a relational partnership model from give the plate to share the plate. Now, we will continue to support our partners with our financial gifts, and we will also move towards supporting those partners in a deeper, more responsive relationship by considering additional means of support that can increase our social justice impact and respond to the actual needs of our partners. Details on how we're going to be sharing these financial gifts, in-kind gifts, and gifts of our time throughout the year are being prepared and will be shared later this fall. Too often I've found, particularly in the realm of social justice, that there is a wide gap between the rhetoric that we share and the resources that we have to contribute. So I do hope that you will join us in this endeavor by giving generously to UUCA's mission to bridge that gap and create lasting change. Cash and checks that are made out to UUCA will be for the Share the Plate partnering practice, but if you are making an annual pledge, if you could just write pledge or annual pledge in the memo of your checks. Your generous gifts will be received now, and ushers, please come forward.
If you're feeling down or weak, you can always count on me. I will always pick you up. Nothing ever's gonna change. Nothing's getting in my way. I will always hold you up. Anything, come what may, don't look back, forget yesterday. Forget yesterday. It's not where you come you're feeling lost, it's hard to find your place in it all, but you don't have to fear. Even when you mess up, you always got my love, and I'm always right here. 'Cause anything, come what may, don't look back, forget yesterday, forget yesterday. It's not where you come from, it's where you belong. Nothing I would trade, I wouldn't have it any other way. You're surrounded by love and you're wanted, so never feel alone. You are home with me, right where you belong. Ooh, ooh, don't matter where you've been. Ooh, you are here for a reason. It's not where you come from, it's where you belong. Nothing I would trade, I wouldn't have it any other way. You're surrounded by love and you're wanted, so never feel alone. You are home with me, right where you belong.
I invite the ushers to come forward. I invite the congregation to join in the response that you find in the printed program. Join me in these words of dedication. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so we may learn from the generosity of others. And so we dedicate these gifts.
Picture me, age 7, wearing a sunshine yellow Izod shirt and matching cotton shorts, missing a couple teeth, cruising down the sidewalk in blue and white roller skates. I would happily skate up people's driveways to see who was available to play. Some days we watched monster movies with Jeff and David. Some days we twirled batons with Amy and Karen. Some days we played King of the Hill on the pile of mulch in the Perry's driveway. It was all very suburban and lovely, until. After I finished 2nd grade, our neighborhood elementary school closed and became a police station. The kids in our neighborhood were sent to 2 different schools, one of which included the gifted program that I had been assigned to. I was nervous about going to a new school, but then 3rd grade started, I found my people, and I absolutely loved my new school. One of my best friends from 3rd grade remains one of my best friends today. Meanwhile, back in my neighborhood, something strange was happening. When the kids I used to play with in the cul-de-sac realized I wasn't going to school with them anymore, they stopped playing with me or speaking to me. Somehow they got this idea, whether it was from their parents or each other or who knows where, that I thought I was better than them. I didn't. I wasn't. Just because I was going to a different school with a different program did not mean I didn't still want to ride bikes and play tag with them. I did, but I wasn't allowed to anymore. They unceremoniously unwelcomed me from their midst. It was awkward and painful. They assumed something about me that wasn't true, that I was suddenly arrogant or a snob, even though I wasn't behaving any differently than I had before when we were hanging out in their basements. But that was that. Fast forward a few years to 9th grade and another fork in the academic road. My friends from junior high were scattering to different high schools. My neighborhood school did not have a stellar reputation. I had heard rumors of chain-wielding gangs of immigrants roaming the hallways, and somehow I bought into these bizarre stereotypes. I assumed the worst. So I found a math class I could take at another, allegedly better high school and transferred. And I had the absolute worst year of my entire public education career. At this school, which was much richer and much whiter than my neighborhood school, people were mean to me. I was turned away from activities I wanted to do. For some reason, I wasn't cool enough to join the French club. Hardly anyone in my classes spoke to me. I was miserable. I made a handful of friends who sustained me that year, mostly people from the literary magazine who considered themselves willing outcasts of the school's elitist culture. By the end of the year, I was willing to face the prospect of roving gangs at my neighborhood school because I figured they couldn't possibly be more unkind than the privileged white kids I'd been surrounded with all year. So first period in 10th grade, I walked into Mr. Lunsford's biology class at my neighborhood school, and a whole bunch of people, most of whom I had never met, seemed surprisingly, genuinely happy to see me. As the days and weeks went on, I was warmly greeted by familiar faces from elementary school and total strangers. I felt at home instantly. And guess what? No threatening thugs anywhere. Whatever I had assumed turned out not to be true. Surprise! Recently, I've been reading this book, Wonder, by R.J. Palacio, with my daughter at bedtime. I read it originally when it came out in 2012, and it's one of my favorite books. Wonder is about a boy named August Pullman who is starting middle school, and he's nervous. Not just because he's been homeschooled his whole life, or because it's middle school, but also because he has a severe craniofacial anomaly. Genetics conspired to make Augie's face startlingly different from typical faces. By age 10, he has already undergone dozens of surgeries. When Augie introduces himself at the beginning of the book, he says, "I won't describe what I look like. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably worse." Our only insight into Augie's appearance comes from his description of people's reactions to him. Stares, gasps, kids running away on the playground. At his new school, all but a couple kids give him a wide berth. They cover their mouths when they whisper about him, but he knows exactly what they're saying. Many of them play a cruel game they call the plague, where they try not to touch Augie even in passing, and if they do, they have to immediately wash their hands to prevent catching what they somehow imagine is the disease that caused Augie's facial differences. The few kids who actually get to know Augie discover that he's awesome. He's funny, he's smart, he's kind. He loves all things Star Wars, playing video games, and when his dog Daisy licks his face. But because he looks so different, most kids and many parents don't give him a chance. They make assumptions, such as that the school made an exception to admit a student with special needs who requires extra accommodations, none of which is true. One mom goes so far as to Photoshop Augie's face out of the class picture, saying he just doesn't fit in. Later in the book, we do read a detailed description of Augie's looks from the point of view of his big sister, Olivia. She is realizing that there's the Augie she sees, of whom she has always been fiercely protective, and the Augie that other people see. She is candid about the effects that having a little brother who looks so shockingly different has had on her life. She is loving and patient, but also weary and honest. Olivia's voice is one of several we hear in Wonder, in addition to August's, which is one of the reasons I love the book so much. Mr. Tushman, the director of August's school, says at one point, "There are almost always more than two sides to every story." And R.J. Palacio offers us windows into the many facets of this story. She wrote a companion book in 2014 called Augie and Me, which tells the same story through the lens of three other characters, including Julian, who is Augie's greatest antagonist in Wonder. Just as so many kids make assumptions about Augie based on his looks, the reader makes assumptions about Julian based on his behavior. Clearly, he's just a jerk, right? But there are, as Mr. Tushman points out, almost always more than two sides to every story. Our brains are hardwired to categorize for survival. Is this creature friendly or likely to eat me? Is this food edible or poisonous? But what happens when the desire to classify everything you see gets out of control? I struggle with this constantly. Is that person thinner than me or fatter than me? Does that person have holes in her clothes because she can't afford better clothes or because she's trying to be fashionable? And why is it fashionable to have holes in your clothes? My brain goes into overdrive. So while I want to be welcoming, while I aspire to be friendly, while I deeply wish I were the person who goes over and sits down at the lunch table where the different-looking new kid is sitting all alone on the first day of school, I don't know if I really am. I'm convinced that sometimes my assumptions about someone else or myself get in the way. What if that person who is crying just wants to be left alone? What if I'm insensitive because of my white privilege? What if I ask an intrusive question because I'm curious? Sometimes this interrogation of myself keeps me from being welcoming, inclusive, or brave. Our theme here at UUCA for September is welcome. So today I'm making a commitment to be more welcoming everywhere I go, whether I'm greeting the new kid or I am the new kid. I'm making a commitment to not let those questions and assumptions ricocheting around my head get in the way of reaching out to someone. I'm making a commitment to remember that there are almost always, more than two sides to every story, and to do what I can to listen to all the sides. One of the great characters in Wonder is Augie's English teacher, Mr. Brown, who teaches his students about precepts, words to live by, and encourages them to come up with their own. I'll leave you with Mr. Brown's precept for September, a quote from Dr. Wayne Dyer. When given the choice between being right and being kind, choose kind. May it be so, may it be so, may it be so. Amen.
Please rise if you are able. We're going to sing the closing hymn, number 407 in the gray hymnal. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. We're gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. Hallelujah. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. All kinds of people around that table. All kinds of people around that table one of these days. All kinds of people around that table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. No fancy style at the welcome table. No fancy style at the welcome table one of these days. Well, fancy style at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. We're gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days.
I invite you to remain standing, and our benediction will be a little bit different. I'm going to let you get a head start on your homework. I want you to turn to someone near you and share with them something you're going to do to be welcoming this week, and then hear what they're going to do to be welcoming. I'm going to not be scared of people who feel like I should talk to you, but I get scared of talking.
Yes, I'm going to try to call people by their name.
I'm gonna work harder to remember those names. I'll try your mnemonic for this.
Until they change clothes. Now she's very flexible. Should I call it back or should I tell her to start? Okay. You want to try to bring him back with the leadiness?
We're going to wrap everything up. So finish what you were saying and come back. We have one more thing for you to do. So I'm just going to read the lyrics to the chorus of Where You Belong. And just do your best to sing along when we actually play it. I'm going to tell you what the lyrics are and whatever you can add, even if you're just humming with a harmony, that'd be great. So it says, it's not where you came from, it's where you belong. Nothing I would trade, I wouldn't have it any other way. You're surrounded by love and you're wanted. So never feel alone, you are home with me right where you belong. It's not where you come from, it's where you belong. There's nothing I would trade, I wouldn't have it any other way. You're surrounded by love and you're wanted, so never feel alone.